Okay, so I'm live. I need to make sure this is public though. So let's go. Because last time when I did this, I forgot to make it public, and we sat here for like 45 minutes with it on private, which was not a good thing. Okay, so there, I think it's public. It should be published. Now I'll go to my YouTube channel and make sure it's good. For those of you watching, I apologize. I just want to make sure that everything is working. Live now. Let me see. Let me try and click this. Looks like we're live. I think we're live. Started streaming. All right, we're good.
Cool.
So I have the
Hello,
chat.
everybody.
Yeah, hi everybody. This is for those of you who don't know, this is Vasiliy. He's a free. Did I pronounce your name right, by the way?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, Vasiliy. He's a freelance Android developer. He's been a freelance Android developer for how long?
2 years now.
For 2 years now. And you also have some experience on the job. He's also a course creator on udemy.com. And that's how I actually became aware of him, because I think you have the best courses on Udemy, and I'm not lying about that, but we'll talk more about that later. Yeah, so everybody, welcome to the stream. And so let's get started by telling me about how you got started programming, from whether you started in high school, university, after university. Paint me the whole picture. I want to know how you got started.
Okay, so my story is kind of unusual one. I did have some experience programming in the high school. I wasn't too geeky though. Just took some classes and made it as part of my studies. Mm-hmm. But then I never dreamed about being programmer. I wanted to be like scientist in physics.
That's a nerd. What do you mean you weren't nerdy? That's the nerdiest thing you can do.
I was another kind of nerd, kind of nerd that basically tries to tell everybody how it's cool, like all this Rayleigh scattering and stuff. And people just look at me and, can't you just watch? Rayleigh scattering is the effect that causes, for example, the sky to be blue and the sunset to be red. So each time we saw a sunset, I kind of bring this topic up. I think it's very interesting and stuff, but people just tell me, can you just be a little bit romantic and don't inject your
So you want to know everything basically and be like,
I want to know about the nature. Yeah, so I have a degree in applied physics, and I worked.
Same.
Really? Mm. Yeah, so I'm specializing in microelectronics.
Same.
Okay.
That's so
and
weird.
I worked at the major semiconductor company, so that was my path. I started as a logic design engineer and power optimizations, and I worked on microprocessors and security hardware for several years before I actually, kind of accidentally, my friend brought up one idea, and I had time to work on it. And he told me, like, you're kind of a programmer anyways, so write an Android application for that. And I started writing Android application, and it felt so great because I think software engineers, and especially mobile, we have like the power to bring products to end users almost on our own. Like you don't need any resources. And in contrast, in hardware, where I used to work, it's like projects, like fast project is a project that takes like 2 or 3 years, and maybe 50 to 100 people work on it over a course of 2 3 years. That's like the smallest, fastest hardware that you can develop.
And you probably you don't get to see you don't get to see the results very quickly too. So I think it'd be very hard to stay passionate about something like that for like a long period of time, because you don't get to see, it doesn't feel fun to me, I guess is a way to put it. Whereas when you're building apps or websites or whatever, you have a purpose, you're building it, and you get to see the results of that product right away. It seems more fun.
Exactly. It's more fun, it's more satisfying, and you are more in control. So if you would like that, software is much more agile than hardware, and that's what brought me in. So I switched to Android development professionally and worked at a couple of jobs and until got to this point.
So how long ago exactly did you start doing Android development? Like when was that first app that you're talking about?
I think it was about 5 years ago.
Okay, and how did it turn out? Like how I know I've heard a lot of sort of I mean, everybody has sort of a horror story about the first app that they built or the first freelance project that they did. And they think, usually when you ask them about it, they say something like, yeah, it worked, but,
Exactly, it worked, but
yeah.
so we actually built it. The application was called I Do Care, and the idea was that there are people who care about environment, and we wanted to build a social network for them and allow them to collaborate. So, for example, in Israel, where I live, very popular like gatherings when you like people who don't know each other gather and go clean beaches, go clean forests. And we thought about making a social network for these kind of people and allow them to create events and collaborate in some way, one another way. And I actually built this application, and we built the front end, and we built the back end, we built the entire system. We built the prototype, not fully functional, but it worked, and it allowed you to kind of collaborate between people and write comments and give ratings one to another. But all of us were engineers.
Yeah, of course. I'm sure if you were to look at the code right now, you would just cringe. I
still look at the code. I use this application as my test bench. So whenever I want to test something new, I have this code base. It's not very big. It's about 15,000 lines of code, but it's big enough to test and get the feeling of a real application.
Okay. So you had a pretty good career going then when you decided to switch to Android development. How many years had you been working at this place?
Good career. I mean, before I switched.
Yeah.
I was on a very good track, and in my past career, yeah. So I've been there for about 3.5 years.
So how I guess just the things that you described, how it wasn't. You didn't like it as much, I guess. You got a taste of Android development, and then you said, I'm going to go and give this Android development thing a try.
I liked it very much, but when I discovered Android development, it was like so much, I don't know what the word, but I mean, it was just so much different, so much better in many aspects that I just couldn't resist.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I definitely share that. Like I did have a job at one point, but not for very long. I only ever had one job. And as soon as I started programming, I thought, why am I doing this? I wanted to just keep programming, and I wanted to build things. And then I sort of fell in love with teaching, and now that's kind of where I ended up.
You didn't get a chance to work as a hardware engineer or something related to electronics or microelectronics.
No, not yet. Or no, I probably never will.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's the thing you do out of the university or you don't do, because you can always switch to software, but I don't think you can always switch to hardware. It's much, much harder.
Yeah, you can't no one's gonna, because studying to become a hardware engineer is not really practical. Like you kind of have to go to school for that. Whereas if you wanted to become a software, any kind of software, doesn't matter. You can literally just learn on the internet and you can become a very good engineer.
Exactly. And that's another thing that I really like, because, for example, you can kind of study large scale hardware, right? You can build Arduino and you can build all kinds of LEDs and stuff. But once you get to the smallest scale, like to microelectronics, to transistors, to semiconductor stuff, all this knowledge, it's kind of proprietary. It's not open. You don't get to see much knowledge sharing between, for example, people who work at Intel and people who work at Broadcom and people who work at Qualcomm.
Mm-hmm.
Don't go to conferences and tell, well, look, we made this super new approach that works best for us. Now, please compete with that. Take it, compete with that.
Yeah.
And it happens on a daily basis in software, and it's really, really cool. I mean, people don't. So many developers whom I talk to, they don't understand the value of the ecosystem that they are in. They take it for granted. And for me, it was a big part of why I switched.
I totally agree with that. And that was a really good analogy. It's like a physical invention. Like if I invented some fancy chair that, improved your life and gave you a 6-pack magically, of course, everybody's going to buy the chair. I wouldn't go and share that information with the community. But if it was some piece of software, it's probably going to be on GitHub, and I'm going to be like, hey, check it out, look at it, refine it, whatever.
Yeah, and take it and use it, right?
Take it and use it. Yeah. And you're right. The people, I think, definitely take advantage, or they don't realize what they have, especially with the Android community. Everybody shares everything.
Yeah, Android community is absolutely open and really like. No, Joe Spolsky once, I think it was Joe Spolsky who said very smart thing. He said like business people, they always try to hide stuff from each other. They try, but then eventually developer from, for example, Microsoft and developer from Google, they go to the same conference and sit next to each other on a plane. So on the span of 3-4 hours, all the secrets that they for years tried to keep, they will just cross and they will exchange these secrets like without understanding what they are doing. And I think that it's a really good thing for the industry. I'm not sure business people like that, but it's for innovation. It's what drives innovation in software.
It's best for innovation, like you said. I can picture this engagement between this Microsoft employee and this Google employee. This is what would happen. I'll paint a picture. They'd sit down on a plane. Both companies would have had them sign something saying, "Don't talk about our stuff off
exactly.
out of
NDA,
work."
all NDA, yeah.
And then as soon as both of them will kind of poke and see if they can get the conversation started. One guy will release a little piece of information, the other guy will release another little piece of information, and then eventually it's open. Yeah. And they don't care. Like they just want to share the information.
Yeah, and we don't even think about it. Like I think it's actually good that we don't think about it, because software developers should be doing another stuff. We don't need to think about trade secrets and stuff. And therefore, like, for example, I see software developers who are like presenting on stage and, being part of companies' public relation policies. And you can see that it's difficult for them. It's not something that they're good at.
Yeah.
And it's good that they're not good at it, because it's what drives, as you said, drives innovation.
Yeah. It reminds me of Jake Wharton. I feel like he's always like tweeting things and saying things, but then being like, "Oh, well, I'm not supposed to say anything, so I can't." But I have these opinions, but I can't share them. It's funny to hear that. It's
I'm sure it's like very cool to take him to beer after he leaves Google.
I would love that. Like that would be like a Christmas present for me, or like a wedding present. I would love that.
Yeah, I guess you are a fan of Jake.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm sort of I have a predisposition. Okay, I don't know how to say the other word, to people who say and do confrontational things. I don't know why. I think that's why I like you so much too, is because you very often share controversial things. And I think it's funny. I think it's hilarious every time you do, when you point out something that doesn't really work that well, or work the way it's supposed to, or work the way it's advertised, or things are named the way wrong, like incorrectly. That's very misleading. I think it's hilarious. So it's probably...
You're probably also MMA fan, right?
No, I'm not an MMA fighter.
You're not.
No, I used to play a lot of sports, contact sports, but not anymore. Now I just sit at the desk.
Like all of us.
Yeah.
So by the way, if you brought up Jake, many developers think that I'm kind of like don't like him or something, because we constantly argue on social networks, and that's actually not true. I'm also a big fan of Jake, because I think he does, like, if you take one single individual and you think about his contribution to the ecosystem, I think Jake's contribution is like in billions of dollars. I actually sat down to estimate that, like how many Android developers are there, how many hours Jake spared to each one of us. Let's multiply it by like some estimation of an average salary per hour of work, and you get to billions of dollars. I mean, I wish by the end of my life, I will do like small part of what Jake did until now. So
I think you're right. Yeah.
All of you out there who think I'm kind of don't like Jake, no, that's not the case.
You can't hate the man. If you're an Android developer, you can't hate him. I think all you can do is admire him because of what you said. It's like countless contributions of like massive magnitude, and you just think like, how much time have you saved me as an individual? And then extrapolate that to, I don't know how many Android developers there are, hundreds of thousands probably. Well, maybe not, thousands for sure. So
no, it's millions.
It's what? Millions?
Yeah, of course. I mean, there are probably today around 5 million, at least 5 million active Android developers.
Wow, I didn't know that. Where are you getting these statistics from?
You can Google it. I found 3 or 4 sources. Different sources state different numbers. The highest I found was like about 8 million developers, Android developers, and the lowest I think about 1.5 or 2 millions. But the thing is that there are about 50 millions by Stack Overflow numbers. There are about 50 million developers in the world. I think something around that. And 30 million of them are professional developers. And if you think about Android, which is like the most popular operating system in the world, so it's a big part of them are Android developers out of this 50 million.
I guess you're right. I never thought about running the numbers like that. I just kind of.
It's crazy. It's crazy to think about it. It's like
it is
developers.
Yeah, like I said, I almost didn't think there was even 100,000. So I don't know. Like I have no idea.
Yeah.
So let's
turn out that I'm wrong, and by not.
Well, you could be. Yeah. You could be, and now you're on record forever.
Exactly. Now I will have this clip point brought up every time I try to argue anything. Thank you.
Let's start talking about freelancing, because I know a lot of people are interested in freelancing. I get a lot of questions about freelancing. I don't personally do it, so I would like to. Yeah, I'm not sure where to start, but maybe start with how you got into freelancing, because you had jobs as an Android developer. So why did you transition into freelancing when you had kind of the security of a job?
For me, it was very as everything that happens to me was very accidental. I left my last full-time job to work on my own project, my second project, and I thought that I will take like 6 months, build a prototype, and then basically make a startup or something. And after 6 months, I realized that I'm not even close to finishing, and I had to like keep working on the project and also pay the bills. So I started doing freelancing.
So, but like, sorry to interrupt you. Like what, when you get these freelance projects, what sort of things are you working on specifically? Like, are they whole projects, or are you were you working on little pieces of projects from people outsourcing parts of their other projects, kind of thing?
Yeah. Today I work on all kinds of stuff, not just Android, and I also do some consulting. So let's leave that aside, because it's totally like it's a little bit different. But if you talk about freelance development, when you need to write actual applications for clients or maintain application for clients, I do small scale projects. So because I work alone, I think my projects range from like 25,000 lines of code to my biggest freelance project was about 70,000 lines of code. So it's like medium-sized applications that you can write probably I can write them in like several months of work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
or I inherit them from someone.
I think there's a lot more involved in even like a small to medium application than a lot of people realize. Like, how much time do you spend on like the construction, and then how much time on testing?
Well, I don't spend much time on testing due to several reasons. One, I unit test, and that like covers a big part of my ability to bring products quickly and at high quality. And also because I work on small projects, usually the clients are the ones who do most of the testing. However, testing is not a big part of the effort to complete the project. Even though the last project that I completed was extremely difficult, like really, really difficult. I had to like stretch myself to the edge, and still, there was a lot of testing in the sense that, once the client discovered the problem and I tried to solve it, and in this case, I ran into some limitations of Android and the audio formats that were played. So once you get to this point, you start to test all kinds of implementations to see if the problem is resolved. So it's not exactly testing for testing as QA do testing. It's like developers testing when you try some approach that you can't unit test it. You can't unit test the quality of audio and timing of audio. You need to actually play it. So this took a lot of time, of course, but otherwise I'm not very, I wouldn't say testing is a big part of my job.
Okay.
So if I need to give one recommendation to people, like you said, people ask you all the time, basically you can do freelance if you can find clients and convince them to pay you. That's like the only requirement that you need. Once you know how to do that, you can figure out the rest. I mean, there are good freelancers and there are less good freelancers, but at the end of the day, clients don't usually care about the code you write, right? So what they care is that they get what they asked for. And if you can convince them that you can do that and then deliver, you are good to go.
So what types of projects do you mostly work on? Do you mostly work on corporate stuff for companies and businesses, or do you work on sort of private like, if I had an app idea and I came up to you and said, hey, can you build this? Which types do you usually work on?
All kinds of projects. Usually I work with startups. I don't work, I do some consulting and code reviews for a little bit bigger companies, but my freelance, when I develop stuff, it's mostly for startups or individuals even. So like currently I'm involved in a project in the medical field. So it's a startup company that builds some kind of medical equipment for hospitals, and they control that. They basically have Android application, which is not on Play Store. It's on-premise installed. And this application controls their product and analyzes the data and gives some notification to medical staff.
Oh, that'd be cool. I think that projects like that, I think, would be great for a freelancer who's just starting, because you like, it's very specific. You have a specific piece of equipment that it needs to work with. There's not going to be any sort of variations. You don't have to worry about camera size A, camera size B, camera sideways, different operating system. Everything's consistent. I think like stuff like that would probably be everything's very clear. The business, right?
Except one thing. Yeah, it would be as you say. It could be as you say, except one thing. They develop the hardware. So think about it. It's like you need to interface with the hardware, which is not exactly reliable.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So I was assuming you had
it's like working with camera, but worse.
Okay, interesting.
Because then you get data, and they've got an entire mechanism for compensating for errors and mistakes. Like that's a big part of the application, is how you take raw data from this device, process it, and then output something which is reliable, because it's medical device. So you can't, if like something is broken, you need to compensate for that, or tell the user that you can't show anything. So yeah, it's a big part of that application specifically. But otherwise, yes, I would say the best thing for starting freelancer is to find a client who needs specific application, as you said, and who has already done all the how do you call it, requirements gathering, and they have UI. Because big part of what I do also for companies or for individuals is like helping them choose the path. They ask me like, do I need to do X or Y? And then I need to help them choose. So that's something you actually need experience to do. You can't learn that.
Yeah, but I was going to say, sorry, go ahead.
No.
I was just going to say, yeah, I think one of the most difficult parts about freelancing is probably that. It's when like clients don't know anything about tech. They don't know anything about apps. They don't know how things work. They probably don't even know that iOS is different from Android. Like really, and they come up to you with an idea and they say, "Can you build this?" You have to kind of steer their thoughts into the realm of possibility, because they don't know. And if you don't know and they don't know, then there's an issue there. There's going to be issues.
It will be difficult, and probably the end result won't be exactly what either you or your client envisioned. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So so how did you go about starting to get your freelance clients? Because I think your blog is around 3 years old or something like that.
No,
Which
more. I started blogging very early into my Android development career.
Oh, okay. Okay, so that's probably where it came from then, right? You started
Well,
blogging.
but you can say that it's like 2 years old because it's only in the last 2 years that I actually invest time and see my blog as something really serious. Because before that, it was me dropping my thoughts and my ideas out there without any kind of mission or aim or goal, you know. So
Yeah.
it was that for a very long time, just me putting some, just, when I wanted to understand something that I do, I will just write about it and analyze it, and that will help me to analyze what I do. But today it's more focused on actually helping other people. Yeah.
So yeah, so how did you start getting freelance clients then?
Friends,
Oh,
friends
interesting.
and people, friends and people whom I worked with, and basically that's like I think all my clients except maybe one or two came from that.
Wow, you must
So
be a popular guy.
yeah. Just like I'm not very popular in the Android community with my opinions, I have similar opinions about business and stuff, and I'm kind of straightforward guy. I'm not very good at politics. But I did work with some very great developers and business people, and I became friends with many of them, and they know what I can do. So they sometimes just someone will, get me a lead. And by the way, most of the leads, I fail to convert them to clients. So, it's like, as I said, the most important thing, the most important trait as a freelancer is ability to take people and convince them that you can do the job and they should pay you. If you can do that, everything is all right. But for me, it's going all right. And some leads I got some leads from my blog also very lately. The blog started to generate leads. And yeah, that's basically it. I did some freelancing, I tried myself doing content writing for money. So I wrote some articles, and I'm not doing that anymore, but it was interesting experience.
Well, if I often get asked if I can build projects. I get, questions on LinkedIn, Instagram, email, whatever. A lot of people ask me because they think I do freelancing, but I don't. And I don't know any freelancers personally. So from now on, I think I'm just going to funnel them your way. I'm just going to say, hey,
Yeah,
I think this guy could probably help you out. So I'll send you some
yeah, but
leads.
just don't build too much expectations because currently I'm kind of overwhelmed. We'll
Okay.
talk about that maybe in a minute about in personal projects. That's a very interesting topic to me.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
so I just want to talk about one more thing before we move on then is how do you price your projects? How do you like, because you get these requirements that are vague. The client probably doesn't know often what they really want or how to do it, how long it's going to take. How do you sort of direct their aim properly and then price that and, sell it basically?
The best thing to do, I think, is to price hourly work because you don't know usually how much time will it take, and the client doesn't know. So the most honest thing is to decide, okay, we are going to pay per hour, because otherwise, one of the two will happen. If you work for a fixed price, which I did once, and I will not do again probably. If you work for a fixed price and you underprice the project, you don't understand the entire scope of the project. Then either you will work for free, and then inevitably the quality of the work will suffer, and you will suffer because you need to pay the bills eventually, or you will need to renegotiate the terms with your client in the middle of the project, which I think is not very professional, but I did that because it was either like, sorry, I can't complete this project, or like, we need to renegotiate the terms. And I chose, when I did once fixed price, I screwed up the estimation and we renegotiated the terms. It wasn't pleasant experience for me. So
Yeah.
I think the most honest thing is doing like hourly work if you're freelancing. The only exception I can think of is if you have like a lot of experience with a specific type of applications. If you've built like 1 or 2 e-commerce applications already, and you know exactly how much time, no, not exactly, but I mean, with a good,
Very close.
yeah, within good margin, you know how long will it take you, how much effort you will invest into that, then yeah, sure, go ahead and price it at fixed price. But just fixed price is like double-edged sword. It can work against you, it can work in favor of you.
Yeah,
But
that was a good explanation. I don't think you could have said it better. It's yeah, if you overprice, cool, but if you underprice, that's a miserable situation to be in. You know,
yeah,
yeah,
and
I
if you
can imagine.
overprice, you might lose the client, because, for example, there are people who compete on price. And maybe as a starting freelancer, I did that. I guess everybody did do that as a starting freelancer, because you can't compete on anything else. You don't have a reputation, you don't have references to give, you don't have people to vouch for you. So you need to compete on something. So you compete on price. And if you overprice, like, I don't know, there's a project and you price it at $30,000, just throwing some number, and somebody else is willing to do it for $15,000. And there's no indication that you can do it better than somebody else. The client will probably choose the other guy, even if you are good, even if the other guy will screw their project, they will probably choose him.
Yeah.
So you want to very carefully, if you are a freelancer and you want to get work, you want to very carefully navigate this part. The good thing about freelancing is that once you get some reputation going, once you get like some satisfied clients and you get to be known in the industry, and especially if you have like yourself, like you have a YouTube channel, you have courses, you are saying that people actually approach you and ask you about work, right? So once you get to that point, do whatever you want, because you will be in a position and you can actually increase your prices, and sometimes I don't even work myself. I started doing this, like bringing unexperienced developers, and I take project, but they actually do the project. So kind of I put my name of it on the project, and they do the project. And after several months, when I feel that they are absolutely all right and they're in control, I get myself ejected out of the picture, and that guy starts to work directly with the company. That's something really cool that I did twice already, and I really like the concept, because I know that how hard is that to get your foot into the door.
So what you basically helped someone get their foot in the door, is what you're saying.
Yeah. Well, I get paid for that, but yes.
Well, yeah, but I mean, moving forward though, you lose that client, right? Because you associate.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So
You
I mean,
cannot get paid.
yeah, I mean that's admirable. That's not like that's a pretty selfless act, I would say. You got to get paid. I mean, you're still putting your time into it in the first place, so that's a nice thing to do.
Again, when you just start freelancing, you hunt for a job, and I hunted for a job, and sometimes I do have periods where I don't have a job. But at some point, when you really have like happy clients and people talk about you and they recommend you to each other, you have too many opportunities. You can't do all of them. So either you pass on them, or you delegate, or you transfer them to other people. So for example, I've got freelance friends, and sometimes people ask me, I can't take their project. I tell them, talk to that guy, maybe he will.
Right.
And if there is some kind of like referral fee that people actually pay each other, if that works out. But I thought that it would be cool, to take people who I think very talented, because there are really talented developers, hardworking. But when they try to get into the industry, they're judged entirely by the years of experience on their resume. And I think it sucks. I think it's the absolutely wrong way to judge people. Judge developers, not judge people. Judge developers.
But
I started doing that, and it's good for me. It's not selfless act. It's good for me. Because you get happy clients, you get paid for some time, and you get like friends. It's important. If you are doing freelance, your social connection is probably even more important than your technical abilities.
Oh, for sure. Like if you're the best developer in the world, or if you're the 80th percentile developer in the world, I'd rather be the 80th guy who knows hundreds of people, or rather than the best guy who knows 3 people, right? Like,
Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly. And by the way, when we speak about, I don't want to like discourage anyone, but freelancing is hard, at least in my experience. It's hard, it's stressful, it's negotiations with clients, it's you bearing the entire responsibility, and sometimes sitting without a job, not knowing, like, when will you have another client, when will you have money coming in. So I definitely not recommend starting out freelancing out of the blue, leaving your job as like I did. I do stupid things. So that's probably not the thing to learn from me.
I also did that.
Yeah. Exactly. So don't learn from us.
I also do stupid things. So
yeah, but it's survival bias, right? So
yeah,
someone, some unexperienced Android developer watches this stream and says, well, these 2 guys pulled that off. It seems to work for them, so I can do that too. But what they don't see is hundreds and hundreds of other developers who try to do that and screw themselves up. And if you actually want to start freelancing, what I can recommend, there's a guy named Eric Dietrich. He has a blog called deadtech.com. And he writes about freelancing and consulting and all these topics in details. And he gives actually very good recommendations in my experience. And I also worked with him. So he's like very, very professional, very, very experienced in this area. So if you want to start freelancing, the first thing, you go to his blog and you start reading it before you leave the job, before you do anything else.
You're talking about Dade Tech, right?
Dade Tech.
Yeah. Dade Tech. Yeah. I have him on, I think I follow him on Twitter. Vasiliy follows him on Twitter. We don't have many followers, so you could pretty easily find him. I know the guy, Dade Tech, and he's a good writer. Like, he's a really talented writer, I think. His blog is really, it's good. It's great blog.
Yeah. He made a business out of it. Now he has a company called Hit Subscribe. So what they do, they write technical content for companies to promote their products. So for him, it's like full-time business now. Well, maybe not full-time, but I mean, it's his business, and he is very good at it.
So I have more questions, but we should probably answer some questions from the chat, because there's quite a few people.
I just want to ask you about your experience with education. If you want to now, or maybe after we answer the questions from the chat. So just let me know when.
You can just ask me now. Let's just.
Okay. So one thing that I'm very interested in is, like, first of all, how people find teaching about Android. Is it difficult, or is it simple? Did you try to teach other topics except for Android and compare? I
pretty much jumped. So some people know my story, some people don't. So I'll just kind of give you the cliff notes. I graduated my last semester of university. I did physics, and I did mechatronics engineering also. So I have a physics degree and a mechatronics diploma. At the end of my education, I said, what the hell am I going to do? How am I going to get a job? So I said, well, maybe I'll become a software developer. So I started teaching myself how to code. And pretty much right away, I started just making videos. So I started. I didn't publish the videos at first because they were shit, obviously, and but then eventually I started to just publish them on YouTube. And if you look at my earliest videos, like, they're really, 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 really terrible. But it helped me learn very rapidly. Like, it was like a good feedback loop, and it kept me coding a lot. So it was, very addicting, obviously, because eventually I graduated, I got a job in IT, which was going really well, but I was also programming after work on the weekends whenever I could. Mm-hmm. And then eventually I said, screw it. Like I said, I do stupid things. And I was also progressing pretty well in my job. Like, things are going good. I do well in a social environment usually, and the job I was working at was a very social place. But I do stupid things like you do, and I quit. And so then just kind of I took off from there. I basically went from programming part-time to programming full-time, so the skills rapidly increased. So as for teaching other stuff, I don't know, because I've only done Android pretty much for teaching. But I will say that I've been programming Android now for about 3.5 years, and somewhere, I can't remember when, I also learned how to do web development with like Django, Bootstrap, JavaScript, Node, all that stuff. It took me, I bet you it took me 5 times as long to learn Android to become like competent in Android as compared to competent in web development. So that, I think that speaks to the difficulty.
Yeah, probably exactly my experience. Like you take something like Angular, it's a piece of cake compared to Android.
Oh yeah, like there's just so many things. It's always changing. The documentation used to be absolute shit. It's better now.
Yeah.
The Google samples have everything's improving a lot. Like it used to be way worse. For all you people who are learning Android now, try 3 years ago. It was a mess. Like everything was a mess. There was nowhere near the resources there is now. But
Yeah.
it's still
On
hard.
the other hand, however, I would like to maybe hear your opinion on that. If you start like when I started, basically fragments were the cool new thing, and that was the difficulty. Fragments and loaders, and happily, like fortunately, loaders died already, and I spent way too much time on them. Fragments are still around, and they actually take care of them finally. But today, developers who come into Android, they've got like this, how do you call it, analysis paralysis. You've got so many frameworks and so many ways to do things that I feel like people can't choose. They're like stuck. What do I do? How do I go? Like even from Google, the official guidelines, you've got like
It's all over the place.
6 major frameworks in the last like 2 or 3 years, and each of them is complex. It's not the simple stuff. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think what Google is doing is wrong. They shouldn't be doing that. There should be a very clear pathway to learning what they think is the best thing at that time. Like, I don't think they should be pumping Kotlin while they're pumping Flutter, while they're pumping this architecture and that architecture. Like, it's confusing. It's miserable. It makes it seem impossible to learn. But it also is good for people like us because we're like the filters. We go and we look at it and say, this is what works, this is what doesn't, this is what I've done with it, this is what he's done with it. And like I said, I was going to say this earlier in the talk, I think that's why the Android community specifically is so awesome, is because it's so difficult. So the community knows the struggles and they all kind of come together and help each other to improve and learn things, because like I said, it's very difficult and it's hard. It's not clear. It's not even clear what they need. Like the things are difficult to learn and it's not even clear which things you need to learn. So it's, yeah.
I mean, I probably couldn't get a foot into Android development without blogs of other people, and that's actually what pushed me to blog, to actually have my blog, because I said, okay, I told myself, okay, you've got this idea, it looks interesting, maybe it will be useful just like other people wrote, and it was useful to you. And yeah, exactly. Okay, I just wanted to see if our experience.
So you agree with that, is what you're saying?
Yeah, of course. Well, everything you said, I think that's the state of the matter. I would rather prefer Google, to polish the basics API and then allow the community to build upon that.
That's a great idea. That's actually a great idea. They should have like a I don't know, a diagram that says like, here's the base stuff, here's like everything. This is what everybody needs to know, and then here's where it diverges into like architectures or like different ways to do views. I don't know, whatever. Like it's like get the stuff everyone needs to know. Start here, and then do whatever, rather than like just do whatever.
But instead, what happens is like, for example, and it's like funny. We bring this topic up every time, and I know that at last year's Google I/O, I think Artem Zinatulin was the one who actually pressed them on that. He said, like, guys, like, it's time to fix this fucking. I told myself, not swearing on air.
Yeah, it's what you do naturally, so it just comes out when you get emotional. It's okay.
So like, it's time to fix this keyboard stuff. Like, how much time should developers invest into reinventing all the hacks around soft keyboard? And I would rather see Google engineers fix that once and for everybody than working on stuff like architecture companies. I know that many people wouldn't agree with me. All right.
I think I agree. I think I would like to see there's a lot of things like that. Like, it doesn't come to me off the top of my head, but I know there's a lot of things where I'm doing something and I'm like, this simple thing. Oh, that's right. I have to do this hacky thing that I always do to get it to work. And
Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly. Copy paste. When you do many projects, what you do, you copy paste a lot of accounts and hacks between projects, and eventually people, like I myself started like several months ago. I told myself, okay, it's stupid to copy paste them. Like make them libraries. Maybe even other people will be able to use that. And actually made them into libraries. All these ugly hacks. Yeah, I totally agree with you. These hacks.
So I think a lot of people listening are gonna feel a lot better when they hear us talk about these things, because I know when I was first learning, even now, still today, like when I build these hacky things to like supposedly implement this very basic behavior, I always think to myself, am I doing something wrong? Like, why is this simple thing so hard? So yes, to all of you, we all struggle with this.
And being junior, newcomer to Android, it's probably akin to hell. It takes a lot of time to get to the point when you actually feel comfortable with the framework.
Yep.
So it's not like web development that you can actually take a course and be a master web developer. Well, not master, but you actually build stuff that actually works. In Android, it takes time.
You could literally take some courses and be a freelance web developer, probably like realistically in a realistic period for a period of time for an average person, probably like 3 months, 3 to 4 months. And you would be like employable. Like you'd be like, yeah, I can build that or this or whatever. So
yeah, one of the guys who I told you that I bring people, new developers to the clients. So one of them was actually a full stack developer. It wasn't even Android project. So he wrote PHP, and he haven't written a line of PHP in his life. And after 3 months, he was like building this super complex system that allows you to learn new languages while you're watching movies.
Wow.
Okay. So now he's like built an entire startup. There's a startup, and they got investment, and it's all built by one single guy who, like, before he started to work on that project, never wrote a single. Well, he wrote some toy projects, but I mean, never wrote professionally a single line of code.
Right. So yeah, I mean, that just speaks to it right there. That's a prime example.
Yeah, in Android it will be much more difficult, I think.
For sure. So let's look at some questions. So a lot of these are just everyone saying hi. So hello to everybody who I didn't say hi to. It's probably been an hour since you joined. Hopefully you're stuck around. Okay. Well, the first question is about, do you know anything about that phone company, Huawei? Huawei? Do you know like anything about that? Have you heard anything?
Well, I mean, just the publicly available information. I don't have
Huawei.
Google CEO to me.
So the thing that the U.S. Trump signed something where now they can't use the Android operating system or something like that.
Yeah, no US-based company can do business with them. That's what I get from that thing.
So I think with this,
not just Google, it's like Qualcomm and Intel and all these giants also announced that they will not work with Huawei anymore.
So now, like, what do you think they'll do? They'll have to build their own operating system, I guess, right?
Well, look, all OEMs are like phone manufacturers. Huawei, Samsung, everybody. They all have their backup plans, and they hate Google. Google treats them really bad. And because, well, Google has a business to do, and they want all the manufacturers to work for them. So all of them have their backup plans because they actually know that one day Google will screw them up. And whenever they can, they try, like Samsung and this Zen operating system. Like all of them try to kind of fork Android in some way and customize it. And all of them roll out their own Play stores in a hope that one day it will be at least some kind of competition to Google. So that's going on constantly. So OEMs don't like Google. They do business with Google, but they don't like its practices at all. And all of them have backup plans. That said, Huawei has a huge business in China. We can't really imagine how big is that, like huge business. But as long as they don't have Google apps on their phones, in my estimation, they're kind of dead for Western markets.
Yeah, I don't see that it's not going to be practical for Western market. Yeah,
it's like I don't think anyone will buy a phone which you can't run YouTube on. It's like no deal.
No. Okay, so next question is Flutter. what is the future of mobile applications and web development regarding Flutter? Do you know much about Flutter? Have you played around with it?
I haven't played around with it. I looked into it, and I don't know if okay, so I've got a really long series of articles. I got 4 articles about the future of Android on my blog. It started with my when Google announced official support for Kotlin, I was really puzzled. I did not understand why they do that. And I know that many developers say that it's the next language, it's better language. It might be right. Okay, I give Kotlin and especially JetBrains. I think JetBrains is one of the best companies, software development companies in the world. And maybe Kotlin is better, but what people need to understand that Google invested tens of millions of dollars into Kotlin. For example, if they will take the same amount of effort and invest them into Android APIs, they will probably, we could solve all our problems by now. It's like massive amount of public relationship investment budget, and Google actually pushes it much more harder than JetBrains.
Oh yeah, they even recently in the documentation, I think within the last 2 weeks, I was looking at some samples, 3 weeks ago, and there was always Java and Kotlin. There's both options. Now it's just Kotlin. They actually removed the Java option.
Yeah, so it sounds reasonable. So I started with this, like, why would Google invest so much effort into supporting another language, which is basically the same? It's sugar-coated Java. You can do some stuff that you can't in Java and vice versa, but basically it's the same language. And then eventually I developed a theory which ties everything together: Project Rebel, Flutter, Kotlin. And one of the predictions of that theory was, it was totally conspirational theory, right? It was like crazy stuff that I wrote and
incoming conspiracy.
It's like it already happened.
Oh, okay.
Already happened. So crazy conspiracy theory, really crazy. And I told myself, okay, there's very little chance that all of that is actually correct. Really little chance. But I made some predictions. You're a scientist, scientific method, right? So you have some observations, and you develop a theory that explains the observations that you have so far, right? And then you derive some predictions from the theory, and you wait to see if the new data that comes in actually support the predictions of the theory. And if not, then the theory is wrong, and you can just pause it or replace it. But what happened is that all the data that came in was in accordance to that theory, and I actually predicted that they will have how they call it, Jetpack Compose, which is basically Flutter in Kotlin. So I actually predicted that 1 year ago. So Flutter, in my estimation, there's a fuchsia. Fuchsia? How do you pronounce that? This new operating
system. Fuchsia?
Yeah?
I don't know.
Fuchsia? Oh yeah, fuchsia. Let's call it fuchsia. So there is a fuchsia, and Flutter is its UI framework. In my estimation, Google is preparing to drop Android, to basically kill Android if they lose completely to Oracle in the lawsuit. Okay, so Oracle sues Google over Java APIs, but it's not enough to remove Java APIs. It might be enough. Maybe Kotlin will allow Google to get away with that, but Google prepares Plan B. In Plan B, if
Flutter
things go really, really wrong, they will basically inject Fuchsia, or whatever it's called, instead of Android. And then Flutter will be its primary UI framework. So I think the future of Flutter is the following. If Google wins the lawsuit, it should be like in 1-2 months, in my estimation, maybe several months, that Supreme Court of the United States will announce whether they take this case for review or not. If they don't take this case for review, it means that this case goes to damages, and this will accelerate the stuff. But in my estimation, not in my estimation, I kind of rely on the estimation of one guy called Florian Mueller. So he thinks
Coding in Flow?
What?
Coding in Flow?
No, not Florian Walter. Florian Walter is actually a very good guy in my estimation. He has also, like you, very, very good YouTube channel. I'm nowhere near with my YouTube channel to that level.
Yeah, me and Florian are pals. He hangs out in my Discord channel all the time and steals my viewers.
Oh, not good.
There's plenty to go around.
Actually, I think Android is so huge and so complex that there are much more space. There are more space for other people to come in and produce educational content, and there's space for everybody. Where nowhere near enough content, educational content for Android. So I don't think we compete in any kind of like.
No, we're helping each other. That's what I think.
Yeah, exactly. Well, eventually, like there are people who don't know about you and don't know about me and don't know about Florian, don't know about other bloggers. So they solely rely on Android documentation. Poor people.
Like poor souls.
Yeah, sorry for your experience. So again, Flutter. If in several months Supreme Court will reject Google's petition, I think things will accelerate and Android will die in the course of the following 2 years. Well, what do you mean die? I don't know specifically to say what will happen, but Android as we know it today will cease to exist and will be replaced by something else. And if Google wins, and if Google loses, if Google loses this, if Supreme Court doesn't want to review this petition, Flutter will become very, very popular. Google will double down on their marketing effort for Flutter. But if Google wins, which will take another several years to see because these things crazy slow. If Google wins, they can probably just kill Flutter, kill Fuchsia, and stay with Android because, in my estimation, there's not business for cross-platform framework for Google. It's not good for them for anything. It doesn't give them anything, and they kill projects left and right that have millions of users, and even successful projects. For Google, something to support it. It should be something really that brings a lot of revenue. And you can make a lot of revenue from cross-platform framework development. So
no, yeah, at the end of the day, like the best case scenario for Google is what they're hoping for is that tomorrow all the Apple buildings explode and then they have a monopoly. Like that's an ideal situation. Building cross-platform is only, you're taking a sliver instead of taking it all.
Yeah, except for one thing, both Google and Apple, they have technically monopolies inside their markets. But both of them, when regulators come in, they say, no, look, Google, we have just 80% of the market. Apple has 20. And Apple says, oh, we don't have even the majority of the market. Google has most of it. So they need each other to justify why they are monopolies.
That makes sense too, actually. It's kind of, it's better for them to coexist because it looks better amongst the public that there's healthy competition among two monopolizing companies, I guess.
Yeah, Peter Thiel, probably mispronounced his name too. Peter Thiel, he's like a Silicon Valley investor.
No,
one of the PayPal guys. Okay, never mind. So Peter Thiel, he's like very, very known in startup community. And he said that every startup tries to convince all the entire world that he has the monopoly. But once companies has monopoly, they will try to convince the entire world that they do not have
No. That's it. I never thought of that.
It's the rules of the business. So
yeah, that's true. That's a very true thing. Once you have it all, it's like, no. We're barely making money.
Exactly. We have so much competition. Look at them.
Yeah.
They will probably even sponsor, donate to their competitors to just stick around.
That's funny.
Okay.
So actually, you answered a bunch of questions there, by the way. I was going through these questions. What's Flutter, mobile development? Should I learn Kotlin or Java? You gave us a conspiracy theory. That was awesome. No, you already answered it pretty much, with the
I just want to say something about Kotlin or Java, just a small.
Okay.
Some people who read my blogs think that I have something against Kotlin specifically. I hate that language, or that I try to convince people to kind of block Google's effort of promoting Kotlin in the community. Well, I do stupid things, but I'm not so much self-confident. So all I'm saying is that if Android survives, Kotlin will definitely be its main language. It's no question about that. The only question is, should we migrate to Kotlin right away or even at all, and when to do that? And I don't think that, I think that it wasn't a good idea to migrate to Kotlin until now. Now probably it's more safe, but for example, I started my own new project a month ago, and it's Java, still Java.
So for a new developer, someone who's just starting, should they start with Kotlin or Java? What's your opinion on that?
Java. New developers must learn Java because there are too much educational resources around Java and too little about Kotlin.
I think Kotlin is, it's not as intuitive also, I think. Like, I think some people probably disagree with me. Maybe I am biased, but I think Java is more like explicit with what you're trying to do, I guess. I don't know. I think it's much easier to just learn Java, and then the transition to Kotlin is really very simple. Like if you know Java well, it shouldn't take you more than a month to get back to your regular productivity with Kotlin, I think. Whereas if you went the other way, I don't even know.
Yeah, it sounds crazy because Kotlin was optimized to migration from Java.
Yeah.
And you can convert Java to Kotlin, but you can't easily convert Kotlin to Java.
Yeah. The safe bet is learn Java, because then, and also too, like a lot of companies still use Java. So like you're more employable if you know Java.
Yeah,
Java than Kotlin.
That's very interesting because I hear from many places, like developers from many places around the world tell me like everything is Kotlin. Like there are no jobs in Java, there are no projects in Java, and all I see around is Java. I haven't seen one project in Kotlin yet. So I think maybe it's again some kind of biased sample that big companies that have the resources to like invest, to like lose productivity and invest money and effort into this kind of stuff to let their developers play. Maybe they are migrating and they're creating this sense that everything is Kotlin today. But I haven't seen one professional code base in Kotlin yet.
So my experiences are, because I apply for jobs just to see what requirements are and what recruiters want and things like that. My experience with that is, or recruiters reach out to me. My experience is that they ask for Kotlin. They say they want to know that you're interested in Kotlin. They want to, like, it's listed as a requirement, but it doesn't necessarily mean that their applications are written in Kotlin. It just means that it shows that you're interested in the Android community and what's going on, and that you're kind of willing to migrate to Kotlin if you had to. Usually it's like Kotlin is a very high asset, but not a requirement. But I mean, basically it is a requirement at that point because you're competing. So if you don't know Kotlin, then you probably aren't going to get the job.
Yeah, that's a very interesting thing. Okay, that's probably an entire conversation on its own. Maybe we shall not start it now.
Well, we'll do another live stream.
Yeah, another live stream about what you need to know to become to get your foot into the door or to get your like senior Android developer job. That's
right.
Like good thing to discuss, but it will take a lot of time.
Okay, so let's. I'm gonna sorry for some of you who asked questions earlier, because I'm gonna skip some of them because we're already kind of going over the time. This is a good question because I can answer it, and I'm sure Vasiliy can answer it. Hi, Mitch. Can you tell us the best source to learn Android dev from zero to real hero? Is the question. Shazab. I don't know how to pronounce your name. He asked that. So what do you think?
I think your YouTube channel, and Florian's YouTube channels are the best sources I've seen. And I don't know, maybe even your website. You have some kind of paid subscription website, right, with some more advanced or more in-depth topics.
Yeah,
so
my
beginner. Just didn't check it out.
Yeah, my beginner stuff is free.
Definitely not my content. My content is optimized for.
I'd say intermediate. Like when you're ready to jump to like an intermediate level to expert level, I would think your stuff is where you want to be. And I think yours are great, really awesome.
I try to cater to that kind because I'm not very good at. Well, first of all, it takes me a lot of effort to make videos and write blog posts. Like, I mean, single blog post can take me 3 days to write, and I don't know how do you produce a video. But my first course took me 2 months of full-time job to produce 2.5 hours of video content. That's just crazy slow.
That's not bad, actually. When I was doing work for Pluralsight, it wasn't uncommon for other authors to spend 4 months on a course, and often they miss the deadlines. So it's not uncommon to take that long, for sure.
Yeah. So like I just can't imagine myself doing this like zero from hero courses. They're like 20 hours of content, 25 hours of content.
No way.
I just can't imagine myself pulling that up ever.
I think the people who do that on Udemy have a team. It's a team of people, and they build it, they structure it, they film it together, they edit it together. At least that's what it looks like to me. Because
yeah, surely that's entire business. I mean, some of them have multi-million businesses by this point, but still, it's one guy who kind of speaks for 20 hours in a row, and 20 edited hours. Probably he spoke for 100 hours before they cut it out.
Yeah. So to answer the question directly, if you want like a practical answer to that question, my Sqlite for Beginners 2019 course is meant from, if you're a zero, that's where you want to start. I teach you like basic fundamentals, no architecture, but I also show you how to use Sqlite in the room persistence library, which is pretty fundamental. And then just from there, browse my courses on my website. Some are free, some are paid. The paid ones are more advanced, typically anyway. Also, like you said, Coding and Flow, which is Florian. He makes the best beginner stuff, I think. The only issue with that is there's no I don't think he has like complete courses. He has playlists. So if you know the topic that you want to learn, Florian's channel is probably where you want to go, because he'll have a playlist and it'll be, he explains things in way more depth than I do usually, and it's great. So that would be where to start if you're a beginner, and then as you move on, my stuff and Vasiliy stuff is good. Yeah, that would be my answer.
By the way, if I need to give one recommendation, then of course it's biased recommendation, because I also have courses that I sell, and all of us do some kind of business. However, I think one of the biggest problems in Android community is that people are accustomed to get everything for free. And whenever you just recommend, like bring up the idea of paying some silly amount of money for anything, they're just like, oh no, you try to push that. Oh no, so I think education, you need to pay for good education. I'm not the guy of courses. I can't watch video courses. I just don't have passion for that. But I paid thousands of dollars for the books that I read. And to ship the book from in Israel, we don't have Magic books, so I ship them from Amazon from US, and I pay almost twice the price because of shipping price, and I still do that. And I think that's like, if you want to become good developer, invest in yourself, invest actual money in yourself, and invest in your tools. I used to, I'm embarrassed to admit that, GitHub, they didn't have, for some time, they didn't have private repositories. So whenever I had to do some private stuff, I would go to Bitbucket, because they would allow you like 5 private. And at some point I told myself, like, it's
$10 or something.
Yeah, $10 a month. And for that, I'm doing all of that. And actually GitHub has a great product, and I'm happy with that. So why do you behave like a cheap?
I used to be the same.
All of us go through this. So all of you who watch that and don't invest into yourself, invest in that, because eventually, when you think about it, if you live in a Western world, you spend more money on beer.
It's insane when you really think about it. It's insane what you like, the money that you just throw away, and then like now I don't even think. I'm like, oh, I need to learn this thing. Paid resource done. Paid resource done. I don't care. Like I don't care, because I look at, like, if I was to go out for dinner or drinks with my friends, I'll spend $100, and I don't even think about it. Whereas
you think it's okay.
Like that's insane that's the way my brain used to work. It's like,
so all of you newcomers to Android and in general software developers, you want to speed up your career, you invest some really little funny silly money into yourself, and you will get a huge benefit, especially if you buy books and courses and stuff like that. It's huge. I mean, you will spare months and maybe even years of
time.
Effort.
It's time and effort. Yeah. And you could potentially sour yourself on the whole learning process if you don't buy resources too, because it just makes it easier.
Exactly. Some shitty videos, some shitty
like my shitty videos.
Yeah, I mean, but your shitty videos are actually good. But the thing about paid content is that you almost always, if it's paid content and highly rated, you almost always guaranteed to get good content. So it's almost always will spare you a lot of time.
Yeah. All right, so let's next question is, I don't know a lot about this topic, but I normally I wouldn't ask this question because I don't even know how to answer it, but this person is a subscriber on my website, and I talk to them very often in my Discord channel, so I sort of have a relationship with them. So how are programming languages created? For example, how was Kotlin created?
Again, I wrote about that in details on my blog. If you ask me technically, then, well, there's a theory of programming languages, and there's things, if I'm not mistaken, it's called full lexical parsers that basically parse the language and create some structure of entities. It's very complex. And if you ask from business perspective, like why would anyone do programming language? Specifically Kotlin, I wrote about that on my blog, and other languages, it's just cool. It's cool. It's kind of cool project when you are a developer and you've got some following and you create your programming language and it becomes popular. It's really cool.
So on your blog is where someone could get more information about that, is what you're saying?
Not technical stuff, but if you're interested, like why Kotlin came to be, yeah, I wrote about that.
Okay.
Again,
so take your chance.
Conspiracy theories all around the place. Warning, spoiler alert, conspiracy, like crazy conspiracy. So if you are not up to conspiracies, then better pass on that.
I like it. So, I mean, so far your conspiracy theories have seemed pretty reasonable to me. I don't know. I mean, I enjoyed the explanation, and I think you probably are right. So, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I have a business in Android, right? I have a stake in Android, and my stake in Android is very high. Not like yours, maybe, because it's not my full-time job. It's something that I thought that might be my full-time job, but then I discovered that I actually need to write code to be happy. And build the projects for customers to be happy. But I have a really high stake in Android, so I don't want Android to die in any circumstance. I would glad to discover that all my theories are complete bullshit that I imagined when I was under some good whiskey effect. But currently, as it stands, and there is no evidence, there's nothing that shows that they're wrong, and there are kind of a lot of evidence that shows that they might be in the right direction.
Yeah, but I mean, at the end of the day, I have a stake in Android for sure, but at the end of the day, I'm probably going to start doing Python stuff soon too. Like we can do anything. It really doesn't matter. There's no lack, or there is always a demand for high quality technical content, no matter what it is on. So there's
actually, when I think about it, you are right. For example, if they switch from Android to Fuchsia and people will start to write in Flutter, then there is a huge demand for new.
It doesn't matter. Yeah. Where do you think all those people are going to go that were watching my videos? Yeah. I'm going to start doing Flutter, and then they're going to go, okay, I guess Mitch is going to show me Flutter now.
Yep. So maybe it's good business for us.
Maybe it makes people panic, and when people panic, they get emotional and they will buy my shitty courses.
Yeah. Let's encourage Google to go. No, I really don't like Android. I don't want Android to die because I have this stupid idea that I have over all these years. I want to build my own application. I want to have my own application on Play Store, successful application with real users that does something non-trivial. And I started another project, third one. 2 of the previous projects failed. I started the third project a month ago, and I invest a lot of time into that. And I definitely don't want any kind of changes or disruptions in Android ecosystem in the coming 1 or 2 years.
Yeah, not anytime soon anyway.
Yeah. Well, anyway, by the way, nothing of that will happen in half a year or year.
Yeah.
We are talking about years here. So it's no pressure to run anyway.
All right. So I'm going to butcher his name. Gulbala, I think. Gulbala Sala. I'm sorry for butchering your name. But he says, I would like to ask you and Vasiliy a few questions. The first one is, do you, Vasiliy, ever build apps using Mvvm, although MVC seems to be the best approach, as you mentioned it several times on your course on Udemy, Android Architecture Masterclass? So first, answer that question, and then he's got a whole bunch here. So they look like pretty good questions.
I haven't built apps myself that use Mvvm, but I helped refactor. one application that used MVVM, though, and classic MVVM, not MVVM with view model architecture component. I haven't seen view model architecture component in production yet.
Okay. And second question is, do you ever consider to publish a new course on the architecture masterclass using MVVM?
No, I don't think. Well, look, I really want to do more courses. I have ideas for courses, but I just can't do it full time. I tried to. I thought that it will be my business. I can't. I need to code. I want to build products. And as Mitch knows, but maybe viewers don't know, educational business takes all that you've got. It's very hard. It's very time demanding. It's difficult physically, right? Like
I have.
When I go out of recording course for a month, I'm like flat out for a week. I can't do anything for a week.
Yeah.
So I will definitely do more courses once my new project goes on track. Like I'm in a very high stress operation mode right now. I have 2 clients and third one incoming, and I have this new project that I just started. However, I will not do courses on popular topics. I can only do courses that I tested on topics that I tested, I saw, and I think that they are the best. So my courses are like my personal recommendations, how to do stuff. And I can't recommend MVVM, therefore, sorry. I got this question a lot. Yeah, I know it's very popular. And
so I have MVVM courses. You can check those out. I personally like MVVM. So check those out.
the one with view model or just classic?
View model. I don't even know the classic one because I think I came when I was skilled enough to even start looking into architecture. The new one had been the new thing, so that's the first one I started with. So I don't even know what the old one is.
Great. So with Gambala, I'm sorry. Well, we should be. Let me tell it once. I'm bad with names, and sorry for mispronouncing all of your names. So like, take Mitch's courses. I'm sure it's great.
There you go.
And then compare, because another thing, you don't want to get all your information from one source. You want to diversify, and that's why, for example, I read all these articles on MVVM and view models and life cycles, even though I'm not using them. I want to know, and I want to be in the loop, and I want to be able to realize when I'm wrong, or at least when people tell me that I'm wrong.
You got to be able to, you got to have the information so that you can make the choice for yourself. You got to see what it does, what it doesn't do, and then, weigh the pros and cons depending on your project or how you like to structure your code, basically.
Yeah, because many of that, like a big part of that, is personal preference.
Yeah, I think 100%. Like both work. Like they all work. They all work fine. It's just personal preference to the, like MVVM. Just in my head, it's like it's a beautiful thing that just fits perfectly. And there's nothing wrong with the other architectures. To me, I just like it. Like I just like it. I don't know.
Yeah. At the end of the day, you need to choose your working tools such that you are not constrained by them. So, for example, there is like the best pattern over there. For example, Dagger, right? I know you have course on Dagger. I have course on Dagger, and I like using Dagger. However, there are people who just can't conceptualize Dagger. They don't like it.
It's hard.
And it's hard, and it's also, it's not user. It's not. That's my mic.
Oh, I thought that was a glass or something that you broke.
It almost happened. Yeah. Do you still hear me?
I still hear you just fine.
Yeah, right. Yeah, great. So Dagger. Okay. So if you can, you took a course and Dagger doesn't work for you, like don't push yourself into that direction. Use something else. Use pure dependency injection. Use Coin or something. So personal preference is important. If you can't adapt. Okay, one guy said it beautifully. I don't remember who was that, but I really like his quote. He said, everything that you can incorporate into your standard working flow is not a preliminary optimization. So preliminary optimization is something that you can't incorporate into your working flow. So if you can't incorporate easily Dagger into your working flow, or MVC, or any other tool or pattern, don't stress about it.
Good way to put it. Let's see here. So in your course, you basically take an existing project and make improvements on codes. However, it would be much more educative and explanatory if you build a project from scratch for existence. That's just advice. So let's go to the next one. And kindly, a request: would you be interested in publishing a course using MVVM, retrofit, local database cache, and SQLite and Room, similar to one of Mitch's courses? If you've taken my course, oh, I see. So he wants to see another somebody else do the same thing, I guess is what he's asking.
Another take on that. Well, yeah. I think I answered that.
Yeah, you did. Let's see. I believe that would be the most helpful and good content. Okay, well, thanks for your questions. Let's move on to the next one. Buzz Min Kyung Hoon, probably butchering your name. I know who you are, by the way, from your picture, but I am going to say your name wrong. How do you creators learn new libraries or techniques? For example, Dagger, unit testing. I am fucking scared. Like, I know I could never learn from documentation. Yeah, so the documentation sucks. So no surprises there. Wow. What do you think, Vasiliy?
I think it's like most of what I get is like community generated content, like blog posts and stuff.
Same
because
with me.
I'm really not very good with videos. You know, I have this, like, maybe I have ADHD, so I can't watch videos. Even if it's clips of 5-6 minutes, I lose track of things. So I'm actually much better at reading stuff. And then you try it out. Like, there's no other way than just sitting and you know, like, it took me several months to actually get to the point where I feel that Dagger is something I can efficiently use. And unit testing takes months by definition. Even if you got the best resources out there, it will take months, many months. It can take years until you get very comfortable with unit testing. And it requires constant discipline to remind yourself when you're like, have these moments of, no, I don't want, I can write it like, I don't need to write unit tests because it's very simple. I will not make a mistake here. And every time I tell myself that, well, not every time, but the times when I tell that and it turns out to be false are precious time, because I kind of meditate on them, because these mistakes teach me something. So yeah, definitely community generated content, and just try it out for yourself, everything.
So
in your just one clarification.
Yeah.
In your toy project, side project, don't bring tools into production professional projects if you haven't used them somewhere else.
So for me, I'm sort of similar to Vasiliy. I watch some video, but I get very impatient with it also. So reading is usually how I do it. Honestly, usually it's blog posts from various places: Pro Android Dev, Medium, wherever I can find blog posts. Usually I start with documentation. Like, I look at the docs, I realize that it's shit. I remind myself that it's not very helpful, but it gives you an idea of what to search further. So you kind of look at the docs, figure out what you need to search more. You'll find community generated blog posts. And then, so that's what I do personally. But for you guys, like, because we make content, that's literally my job. Like, my job is to be that filter for you. I'm going out there learning these things, and I'm pickling all of this time down into a concise bottle, and then I'm giving it to you. So if you're gonna learn something, people like me, Florian, Vasiliy, or any other author that you like to learn from, that's what they're doing. They're kind of taking that info and crunching it in so that you save time. So that, my advice to you is use our stuff. But then other than that, probably community generated blogs is the best, I think.
Yeah, I'm like you. I'm just kind of passing on the official documentation default. Like, no.
It's usually incomplete. That's why. Oh, actually, one more thing I'll say is the Google samples. So, like, if you're learning anything from Jetpack or the architecture components library, the Google samples I think are great. Vasiliy, I know, doesn't like them that much, but I think they're really great. They're really helpful compared to the documentation, because the documentation gives you an incomplete picture of what you're trying to learn. And if you want the complete picture, you got to go to the sample. So yeah, that's just kind of one more thing.
That I can definitely agree with. They are better than documentation. That's for sure.
So is this guy from Ukraine or Russia?
Well, I live in Israel.
So he's from Israel.
But originally I'm from Moscow, Russia.
Yeah, I thought you had a Russian accent. When you told me you lived in Israel, I was like very surprised because you sound very Russian. So.
Yeah, I'm Russian. Like, I mean, I live in Israel for much longer than I lived in Russia, but originally I'm from Moscow.
Okay. Let's see.
I'm just regular Russian guy.
Yeah, regular Russian guy. But you like whiskey, you don't like vodka.
Yeah, exactly.
So you're not a regular Russian guy.
But I live in Israel for a long time, so.
Oh, okay. The culture's rubbed off on you then. Let's see here. So
I don't wrestle with beers anymore either.
Oh, you gave up bear wrestling.
Yeah.
Let's see. How does Google recommend works on Android? I think what you mean to say is how does Google recommend working on Android or any other apps like Udemy recommends? How does recommended system work on Android? I'm not really sure.
Recommendations. If I need to guess, he probably asked, or she probably asked about recommendation engine in Play Store. That's the only thing.
Yeah, I mean, that would be some kind of algorithm that they have built in. Based on, like, so things would have like things that you're viewing would have like tags or like unique keys to them. And then they have an algorithm behind the scenes that kind of it processes all of the things that you typically are looking at, makes connections between them, and then says, oh, well, maybe you'd like this other thing that uses that same key. That's kind of how it would work.
Crazy complex systems. I mean, you can people who specialize in building algorithms for recommendation systems, and they make crazy money. It's a very complex job. I mean, coding it's not that complex once you've got the algorithm fleshed out. But people who actually build these algorithms, they're very smart.
Yeah, like we're talking like guys with PhDs in math who are developing these. They're basically just sorting algorithms. It has nothing to do with programming. It's like literally the math behind it, and then programmers get their hands on it and they make a program out of it, basically.
Yeah.
Next question is how to find a remote job for a junior developer ? Lol.
I don't know.
I think it's impossible. That's my thoughts. Give up on that dream. That would be my advice. Because as a junior, you have no leverage. Why would somebody hire a remote developer? It doesn't make any sense.
I don't know. I don't have anything to say on that, so I better shut up.
Okay.
But what you said sounds about right to me.
Yeah, you need leverage. So there's like getting a job in an office, and then there's getting a remote job. To get the remote job, you have to have something that they're worth, like, because basically they don't want you to not be at the office. You have to have something that is special, basically, or something that they're willing to give that up for. So you probably won't.
Remote jobs get very popular today, but I don't need, just speaking out of my head, I would guess that people who actually hire people for remote job, they want to know that you can do the job. So if you don't have anything on your resume, I can't see how you could get your foot into the door. At least you know someone. If you know someone and someone is ready to vouch for you, that might help. But otherwise,
I just refreshed my chat, and there is way more questions than I thought. Oh shit! I was like, oh, we're almost done, and then it refreshed, and there's like double now. Okay, so we're gonna move a little quicker here, if you still have time, anyway.
Yeah.
Okay, you should just grab a beer and relax because there's like
next time I'm coming with beer.
Yeah, you should. If, like I said, if it was past like 6 o'clock, I would definitely be drinking a beer right now. But just got my tea.
I need to stay focused because I know that I will fuck something up and people will.
It'll be on record.
Yeah, that will be on record, but I don't want to fuck something up really serious. So
that's okay. Okay, so let's. I was able to build an app to help police officers navigate apartment complexes and find. Okay. Oh, by watching my Instagram clone. Oh, don't watch that. All of you who are watching, do not watch my Instagram clone. It's really, 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 really bad. That's all I'm going to say about it. Next question. This needs to be a three-way convo, including coding and flow as well. I agree. Florian, you're invited. I sent you a link, pal. You got to get on here. You got to come on the next one. He doesn't want to do he doesn't want to show his face for some reason. I don't know. There's like it's almost a meme at this point because Florian's never shown his face, and I always ask him in the Discord channel trying to get him to like reveal his face, and everybody always does. But yeah, I don't know.
You can stay like a black screen without
yeah, he could. Yeah,
videos.
He also,
I mean, you don't need me either. I mean, you can do the job of like being the active guy for both of us.
Sure. Yeah. Let's see. These are questions. These are just statements. Coding and flow. Have you thought about partnering with someone to make tutorials in different languages? Oh, and that was to me too. Actually, me and Florian have talked about partnering up a lot. It's not really practical. Like, although like, I mean, you could probably maybe convince me. Like, if you really, we've talked about it a lot. It doesn't seem practical because like, why? Like, what advantage does it give you to be sharing something? You know, like you can still go learn on his stuff. You can still learn on my stuff. You can learn on anyone's stuff. There's not really an advantage of sharing a platform other than a shared subscription. But Florian doesn't sell anything, so like there's no advantage there. So I guess
first of all, I would say that Florian should start as soon as possible, and I'm really surprised that he haven't yet, because he has a lot to share, and like if it looks like he generates videos on such a how do you call it? Such a cadence that it looks like he already kind of does it full time, or
he does do it full time.
It invests a lot of time into that. So I would expect something from him, definitely, and I would think that it will be very great. And as for partnering, I think it's not a very it works sometimes, but I think it's not a very good idea because the following thing. We connect to people, to different types of people. So, for example, I know that I annoy some people because my accent, because how I look, because my ideas. There are like zillion of reasons why I annoy some people, and they will not buy my course if they don't want to learn from me. On the other hand, they like your content, and vice versa. You know, there are people who like my content and maybe they don't like yours. So by having it separated, we kind of create opportunities for everyone to learn. And now consider that we make courses, we make some course together, right? So now to take this course, we need to find people who are not annoyed by either you or me. So it's a much smaller pool of people, and I don't think it can work, but I don't think it's like. Might be a fun project to do, but I don't think it's really serving the actual goal, which is our goal is to basically share the knowledge and teach people. So I think it might be counterproductive.
Yeah. It's possible that it could work, but it's also possible that it won't. And you basically get the best of both worlds by having separate parties. There's no reason to team up. Yeah,
exactly. Maybe like someone who doesn't understand my accent and he wants to hear you speaking. For him it will be no go. You will create a course. It will be great content. We will create a course. It will be great content. But just because he can't understand my accent, this resource is not for him. It will be very, very, or for her. It will be very, very bad situation, because that's why I think like diversifying, and there's space for everybody to bring their expertise.
What do you think of?
One thing, maybe.
Sorry, I was going to say, what do you think of Florian's accent?
I think he's very how do you say it? He has very deep voice, and he speaks slowly and very structured. So I think many people would love that kind of stuff. But also, if you make a course, so for example, my first course is very boring. I just listen to it sometimes, and I'm embarrassed by how I spoke there. So you need to bring some kind of excitement to keep people awake. And I would guess that Florian will need to work on that.
I see. So I actually love his accent. Like, I don't know why. I think it's the so I like the German accent for one thing. Like I like the way it sounds, and then it makes me laugh when he mispronounces words. So that kind of makes it exciting for me. Like I always find myself but I enjoy it. You know, like
Well,
it's
I can, I probably can't catch him mispronouncing the words because for me it sounds like a great English.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, generally it's good, but like there's certain letters he doesn't say right and things like. I mean, it's good. I like it in general. And
Yeah, I mean, for that's what I wanted to say. Like there are experienced developers. Well, first of all your newbies out there, Mitch, you and Florian, you started like producing educational content very early, but it's very difficult and it's time consuming. But there are many experienced developers who actually have much to share because they worked on interesting projects, they tackled interesting problems, and they would not do that because well, I'm not sure I'm good enough. They want to do that, but this fright, this fear of being judged, of being like fuck it. Like if you want to share something, and I got people ask me questions, I want to do X, but I think I'm not good enough. Like, fuck it, like do it, like upload the video on YouTube. Take one day, record something, upload it to YouTube, and then don't stop. Just tell yourself, I'm doing one video on YouTube a month, and go for it. And in 1-2 years, you will be like in a position like all of us. All of us go to our earlier content, either it's written content or video content, and we are embarrassed by what we did, right? Because you improve so quickly when you do something.
only good things can happen, really. Like nothing bad can happen from people are gonna laugh at you, but look at it as a good thing. Like that's not a bad thing. It's a
Exactly.
it's a feedback loop that you want in your life for sure. And
If you want to share something, just go ahead. There are a million of ways to do that, and don't let your fear of stage or being judged stop you. That's for sure.
yeah, it's nothing. Like fuck it is a good way to put it. If you're scared, just post it and whatever. So let's see, what do we got here? Which is the right database for creating a chat application? So that would be something live. You would need like a live chat.
In Android,
In Android.
I don't think you have much choice in Android.
No, I don't think so either. You can either do
SQLite.
Firebase is basically it. Other than that, you could use some other database with a platform known as Socket.io, which I haven't played around with, but I know that you can use it for basically live information. So
You mean database in that context? Well, maybe. I mean, I would use SQLite. You can use any ORM that you want. Maybe the question is more about ORMs rather than databases, because I'm not considering like Firebase and Realm and Parse databases per se.
oh, I think that's what they're asking.
See. Well, then for chat application, don't use Firebase unless it's really small project that you have zero ambition for, because Google proved to be not very reliable partner, and you don't want to be in a situation that like you've built an application and you don't know how to monetize it, and it becomes popular, and you have zero inflow cash for it, but you already need to pay a Firebase bill. And also Google changes stuff and it kills stuff left and right, and so it's not very reliable. Invest some time, make Parse server is a good alternative. I did one project with Parse server, and I was absolutely skeptical about it, but it turned out to be not bad. I mean, there was definitely some stuff to get accustomed to, and some really bad bad nuances that make you waste a lot of time repeatedly. But other than that,
so I sort of disagree. Actually, yeah, I mean, I sort of disagree. I'll tell you why. So the person who's asking this question, chances are they're probably beginner level. And I would say the chances of your app becoming a success are very, very low. Although it could happen. Like, don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to rain on your parade or anything, but it's very low. Firebase is very easy to use, and you're going to have something up and working very quickly if you use Firebase. So my recommendation is to use Firebase, because chances are this isn't going to be a success, and the process of you learning and building this application is going to be the most valuable thing about it. So
I definitely agree. If your assessment is correct, and that's someone who is a beginner and trying to build some kind of either educational project, or maybe his first freelance project, or maybe even at a company, but not much experience, then I take back what I said. Firebase is probably the way to go.
But if you're looking to build like you're in a startup and you're looking to build something that is going to have millions of users, even hundreds of thousands, probably using something that you have complete control of, number one, so Google can't just cut the cord to or start changing shit on you. You being in complete control of is probably the biggest part. So you don't want to use Firebase.
You need to own your data. Like, no matter what project you build and what it does, you need to own your data. It should sit where you have a full control over it.
Yeah.
But again, for professional projects, when you are talking about real money and stuff, if it's educational or it's your first engagement, then definitely Firebase is the way to go. Yeah, I was wrong.
So let's see here. What do we got here? Talking about coding languages, places to learn. Oh, I'm gonna burp. Hey, Mitch, can you give any advice on landing a job as a self-taught developer with no degree? I always feel like I have to do more than most to make up my lack of degree. So I'll answer because you asked me, and then you can give your answer too. I actually don't think that matters. Like, from the jobs that I've seen around, they're like a degree or technical experience. Like, people don't care. They want to see projects. Like, I really don't think that that's true. I think that if you had a bunch of projects or some good stuff on GitHub, a YouTube channel, a blog, post on Medium, post somewhere, and you showed that you're interested in the community. Well, number one, you know how to program. Number two is like you're interested in the community. And then number three is, you know, all of the common things that all jobs are asking about, which is like RX Java, architecture, unit testing, dependency injection, basic UI stuff. Like those are kind of the services, threading. Those are kind of the main things. And if you know those and you have projects, I don't see why an employer wouldn't take a look at you seriously. So yeah, I don't know. Vasiliy, what do you think?
Well, I pretty much agree with what you said. One small maybe thing that it depends on like cultural and geographical differences, because in some places they really don't care about education and where you went, whether you went to university or you self-taught. But in some places, like the mentality of the people is that, they're higher education is very valued and everybody has it. So if you don't have it, that might be a problem. And also, in my experience, bigger companies usually are more formal, and they might list some kind of degree as a requirement. So no matter how good you are, if you don't know anyone inside that company who can vouch for you and bring you in, probably they will pass on you. On the other hand, there are many opportunities and many great developers who are self-taught. And I don't think, for me, 100% my degree covered maybe 1% of what I do professionally. So like, I sometimes wonder why did I do that? So
yeah. That's true.
I don't need that to work, but it might be a little bit difficult to get into bigger companies or in specific geographies.
Yeah, I'm comparing the data with where I live, which is Canada, British Columbia, near a big city. That's what it, and also jobs in the US. So I don't know where you live, but might be different. Which year did you start doing them coding in Flow? Florian is not on this podcast. No questions to Florian until he shows his face. He's just kind of lurking in the chat. That's what he does. Lurks in the chat.
Yeah. Florian, start answering questions in the chat if you're already here. Make Mitch's life easier.
Yeah, come on. I'm a full-time Android developer, and I use your advanced resources for learning new things, says Radiant One. You mean me or Vasily? But either way, if it's me, thank you. And I'm sure Vasily would also say the same.
Very good.
I think Dev Slopes is the best beginners on Udemy. I wouldn't know. That's not a question. I shouldn't have read that. Florian's tutorials are very good. Florian, get out of here. Not allowed. Not allowed to steal my viewers. You gotta come on you gotta earn them. You gotta come on a podcast.
Yeah.
The thing lacking in videos for Android is unit testing. I agree. Actually, Vasily's unit testing course is really good. Also, if you take Vasily's unit testing course, mine is going to be they'll go very well together, is what I'm saying, because he talks about things that I don't talk about. So if you want, same with his Dagger course. If you've watched my Dagger course, I think you should watch both of ours, like his and mine. Mine is more practical about the new Dagger Android stuff. His talks about like the theory behind dependency injection, what actually is dependency injection, like without using a library. So like raw dependency injection. He shows you kind of like the old way to do dependency injection without all of these frameworks and libraries. And then he shows you with them and says, this is what they do. So it's very clear like what's happening behind the scenes, what those code generators are actually generating. So it's good if you want to know more about Dagger and dependency injection.
I guess your course about unit testing will actually show examples, right, in Android.
Yeah. Like I build something like I'm starting from nothing and I'm building an application. So I'm like, add feature, build test, add feature, build test, and like just kind of move forward with it.
That's something I get. This course is very highly rated, unit testing, but that's one comment that I always get is, why don't you show more Android stuff? And I might actually add it at some point, because people ask, and if they I thought that it will derail the focus of the course, because I think unit testing should be learned from basics. But now I can just tell them to take your course, and it will make my life easier.
That's what I do when people ask me about like beginner stuff, because I don't really like making beginner stuff or like isolated topics. I always just point to Florian. I'm like, go watch Florian's playlist. He made a good one. Go watch. And it saves the work for me. So we are working together. We're kind of like a team already.
Yeah, I think like everyone who is like in community and doing education, let's call it professionally, because I'm not sure I can call myself a professional educator, because for me it's like very smart part.
Do you earn money?
Yeah.
Then you're a professional.
Okay, great.
Congratulations.
If you put it like that. Yeah, but again, we all work together. Like there's so much void in educational content in Android that like there's probably 10, 15 other educators. By the way, there's a great guy also on YouTube called Derek Banas. That's his. So he has some very good educational content for Android as well, but it's kind of old. I'm not sure it's up to date, but it's also very good for beginners.
Yeah, he's kind of famous for like, learn this thing in 30 minutes or whatever, and he gives you like a very concise introduction to that thing. So his stuff is probably honestly the best place to start if you're at zero, and then move to like a course or something like that. Probably anyway.
Yeah, though like with the caveat that it might be a little bit outdated.
Yeah, with a caveat.
Because in Android, things change really fast, and something from 4 years ago is basically like, if it's not fundamentals, it's old.
Yeah. Actually, that's a nice segue into the next question here. As a beginner in Android, when should I start worrying about architectures? Because I know earlier we were talking about, I wish in the perfect world, Google would develop this sort of foundation that you need to learn, and then they could say, okay, then you can learn this architecture or that architecture or whatever. So yeah, I mean, it's a good question.
But today, if someone who lands into Android world and wants to start developing, he basically sees this all Mvvm and stuff like day one. It's like boom, architecture.
Yeah.
And, well, I would say like that. Stuff that are more important than architecture initially. Life cycles. of activity and fragment. Writing good code, regardless of Android, small methods, good naming, small classes, single responsibility principle. When you master that, and it sounds like not much, but it's actually very, very much. Android life cycles are crazy complex, and there are a lot of nuance there. And writing good code in general, no one can say what's good code, but many people most people kind of agree what's bad code. So not writing bad code. If you get there, and then the next thing I think you need to do is to understand why you need to decouple UI logic. And that's your gateway into architecture.
Yeah, so decoupling UI logic. That's a good. Yeah.
Once you get to the point where decoupling UI logic becomes your focus, that's the point where you actually start thinking about architecture.
So I'll give you some practical, real practical things. So life cycle, understanding the life cycle, how to set up a recycle view adapter, how to inflate fragments, manage the backstack manually, activity stuff, implementing interfaces, detecting clicks, detecting touches, detecting gestures. I said a whole bunch of things. I didn't move any of my fingers. So I'm going to stop counting because I don't know where I'm at now.
Your saving finger on the right hand. Please move it.
Well, there was one more thing I want. And then making custom objects. So modeling data on custom objects, passing them through bundles. So to new activities, receiving them through activities. At that point, I'd making network requests, so HTTP requests, so using something like Retrofit, and then managing the local database, the local Sqlite database, so using the room persistence library. If you did all those things that I just mentioned, at that point, I would probably start looking at some kind of architecture.
Yeah, and as a rule of thumb, if you are just starting in Android, you haven't got your first job, the first thing you do, you write some shitty application and post it to Play Store. You don't deal with architecture, Dagger, unit testing. You don't deal with anything basically before you've got your first application on the Play Store, because the process of writing one first application, however shitty and ugly it will be, and then uploading it to Play Store will give you so much knowledge that you in such a short period of time, because otherwise you will constantly and endlessly learn stuff. And this one process will actually catapult you into, let's call it, experienced developers. Because once you've got application on Play Store, you are not newbie anymore.
Right. It's good. Yeah, it'll give you a good big picture of things. You'll see you have something working, you put it in the Play Store, you're getting feedback maybe. From
your mom, probably.
Oh yeah. Mom's gonna download it for sure.
Exactly.
Your brothers and sisters will make fun of you.
Make your mom happy and publish your application. Make your mom happy.
So Florian asks, not Coding and Flow Florian, some other Florian. He asks, what books or courses do you recommend buying? So I'm gonna let you answer that because I don't buy any books.
Well, I get this question a lot, and I need to write a blog post about it. And the only reason I haven't written this blog post is because I'm not sure that I've read enough. So until now, I've read maybe 30 books, maybe 35 books on software development, and I don't think I have enough of a sampling size. But if you ask, the best book, is my opinion, to start with for everybody is Code Complete second edition by Steve McConnell. So it's very fat book. It's 800 pages, and it covers basically everything in software construction specifically. So if you want to get one single book that you must read, that will be Code Complete 2. And then you have Effective Java, Clean Code by Uncle Bob, Clean Architecture by Uncle Bob. And if you are already a kind of advanced, so maybe you're, there's not, I don't think there are developers out there who are too advanced to read these books. I'll tell you the truth. But if you're more into kind of architectural stuff, so it will be clean architecture, and domain-driven design. Domain-driven design is extremely interesting book for people who are already feel very confident in code bases, because it's not an introductory book, and you need to have some experience to read and understand it, some real project experience. But if you've passed your like initial learning curve, let's say you've got 2-3 years of experience, domain-driven design is absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, that was a lot of books. I haven't read any of them. I don't like to read books.
Yeah. Again, if you don't like to read books, don't stress yourself.
Yeah.
I mean,
I like reading blog posts, but books, I don't know. I just fall asleep.
Exactly. I read them cover to cover. You know, there are people who kind of
You're insane.
who give you like techniques to read the book. You skim through it, and then you choose what you read, and then I just open it on the first page. I mean, preface. I read like to my mom or to me or to something, and I finish at index. That's just the way I consume books.
And that's okay. The world needs all types of people. Insane, not insane.
and all types of educational content, should we say, right?
Yeah,
so
yeah.
All of you out there who has something to share and don't want to write this stupid Medium post because you think it's not important, just write it.
Write the stupid Medium post.
Exactly. And see what's going on. Maybe you like it, and maybe in 5 years you will be full-time. In 3 years you will be a full-time educator like Mitch.
Just like Mitch.
Yeah, I mean, you've got a lot of I guess that's a question. Do you get a lot of self-satisfaction when you actually make people understand something?
I love it. I'm addicted to it. I can't imagine doing anything else. I think about getting a job sometimes, or somebody wants me to apply to a job, and I just think like I don't think I'd be satisfied. What I do is very satisfying, and especially when you get good feedback, it's like I just want to do more.
Exactly. It powers you up. So many people just don't know that they like it because they never tried.
Oh, I didn't know. Like I literally didn't know.
Yeah.
Then I just started making videos.
Exactly. So people just need to just try, because there are many people who have ideas to share and they don't share it for 0 reasons.
It's literally 0 reason. Yeah. Okay, so let's see. I had a good question here. Well, what do I have to do to improve myself in Android design? So I guess the question is, somebody has an idea. How do I improve that that process in my head where you kind of take the idea and spit out a design, or like formulate a design?
Like UI design or software design?
I think overall I would think software design, not UI design. It says Android design. So I'm guessing like idea to app, which would mean software design.
Well, first of all, read books. No, really, read books. But in general, it comes with experience. There is no silver bullet right there. But it helps to know best practices. It helps when you know architectural and design patterns, because you've got all these small or medium-sized blocks. And when you've got this idea and you've got this toolbox of blocks or of components, then you kind of match. And then you got some wide areas, stuff that you don't know how to do. So you attack these. But yeah, definitely reading and knowing the best practices and patterns helps, because many things that, for example, today when people come to today I met with the client and they want to migrate their application they will have some very crazy backend configuration and they want to clean it up. So without even investing any effort, the moment they told me the requirements and what the business does, I already had like 5 or 6 architectural patterns in my head, like waiting to be combined to recommend some specific approach. So definitely having that as a toolbox and then spraying a bit of experience over that.
So yeah, so it's this tools and toolbox idea. Basically, it's like you can't imagine the design unless you know what tools are available. It's like Yeah, that's basically what it is. If you don't know the tools, how can you picture a design? It doesn't make any sense. So you have to be familiar with what's out there. You got to get your hands on it. You got to build things, play around with it, because then when you hear an idea, it will, in your head, you'll go, oh, I remember when I used this architecture with this pattern and this object structure or whatever, and that worked really well in that situation. So, that's the kind of things that you'll need to know.
Yeah, exactly. In my experience, like most applications, they are about like 80%, maybe even more the same. So you don't want to waste too much effort, mental or like time on this 80%. You want to do them the most quick, standard way there is. And then you want to concentrate on 10, 20%, which is actually what brings life into the projects.
Yeah. When did you start programming? We already answered that at the beginning of the video. We're almost done. We got to end. We've doubled the time that I wanted to do on this podcast. So I'm trying to hurry. I'm trying to rush through these.
Lewis, are there people around there?
There's let me see. I just checked not long ago. Let me see how many people
watch us right
it says
now.
There's 45 watching, but earlier there was a lot more. So I don't know. When I end the stream, it'll say how many people watched it. Okay. I'm sort of new to live streaming, so I don't really know how all this works. Android, all right. Get which books? Wait. Okay, I'd actually think we don't have. Oh, do you recommend to learn to create a REST API? And then there's one more question I'm going to answer, which is from Lewis J. As soon as after this one, and then we're ending the stream. So just letting you all know. So Georgie says, do you recommend to learn to create a REST API? I do. I think that's I think like the most fun, like if you were to have a package of fundamental skills that make you employable as a freelancer or to get a job, basically, is be able to build an application that can interact with a website through a REST API, and it knows how to also cache that data. So it's got some kind of UI. It can interact with a REST API, capture data, post data, store that data locally on the cache, and then also how to actually construct that REST API on the server. Because then if you're a freelancer and somebody has an idea, you have the whole package. You can build the website. You can build the REST API to have an access point for the data on the website. You can build the app to interact with the website. It's everything. So all of those skills, building a REST API being one of them, I think it's like a really, really great skill set. So to answer your question, yes, I recommend that. What do you think, Vasily?
Yeah, I think if you've got like the basics of or advanced stuff of Android figured out, I mean, yeah, definitely. And one last thing, like provocative idea for the ending. Developers spend crazy amount of time learning Kotlin, reading about Kotlin, following the evolution of this language because it's new. People say, oh, it's cool, it's evolving so quickly. No, it's not cool. You're spending like several hours a month reading about the new cool features that are. If you put this effort into actually learning another valuable skill, building REST API, building backend, getting your CI server up, working in Bash, writing Bash scripts, you don't understand, if you've never done that, you don't understand how much time you can spare by just writing some simple, stupid Bash scripts. So there are a lot of things that you can learn. And if you've got the basics of Android figured out, I really recommend stop chasing the latest and newest and greatest in Android. Stay up to date, read the articles, but don't invest all your time into that. Diversify. As you said, only good can come out of it.
Yeah, that's great. That's great advice, because you don't know how much time these things take. They don't take long to learn and become good enough to like do in a production environment. Whereas you can spend endless amounts of hours chasing Android, basically, because there's always new shit. And
Android is like endless. It's endless.
And like they make you feel like you're missing things too. Like that's the way it's like portrayed. It's like new thing, you need to learn it like now. And it makes you like it provokes you, and it almost like keeps you in there. It tries to keep you like, no, keep chasing Android kind of thing. I don't know.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
it's kind of toxic actually. But anyway, let's go on to the next question. I'm going to keep talking about it. Mitch, do you deal with coming up with an idea? How do you deal with coming up with an idea for an app, building it, and then later realizing there's already an app like that, or maybe even better? Do you stop building your app? Do you have any advice? So I don't have any personal experience with this, but I can tell you that I've thought about building apps, and the reason I don't is because I don't think I have a good enough idea, and I think it's really hard to come up with a good idea. So to answer your question, I don't think I would be in that situation, because if I was to build something, I would research it so thoroughly. I would be sure that this thing that I'm building will be successful. I would, because it's a massive time investment. It'd be very stressful. It would be very taxing overall on me mentally, probably physically. It would take away from me doing the other things that help me earn a living. So like I would research that so much that I would be so sure. And so that would be my advice: is don't start building something until you're sure, or at least sort of sure, that this idea is going to go somewhere. What do you think, Vasily?
I don't know about ideas. I stopped judging ideas because
So you're like the opposite then.
not exactly the opposite. I agree with you that you want to research, you want to do your research, you want to do your homework, because before you invest actual time into your project, that's for sure. However, I don't think there are there are probably bad ideas, but no one knows what good ideas look like. People there are people who are called venture capitalists, so they give money to startups, and you would say it's their job, their obligation to judge ideas and know which ideas are good and which ideas are bad. So some guys like Airbnb, who are super crazy successful, maybe 20 different venture capitalists passed on them before they found their first investor. And all big successes, someone passed on them, or almost all big successes. So you don't know if your idea is good or worse or bad. However, when you start working on an app and you discover that there are already such an app or many such apps, it says absolutely nothing. It's zero. Because if your idea, if the success of your app, of your idea, depends on the fact that it's the only one, it's probably a bad idea. It's probably a bad idea to work on. On the other hand, in most cases, people feel this feeling of there are already other apps like that, and maybe they're super big, so there's no space for me. And in most cases, I would say that it's not the case. Okay, so take a big success as Facebook, for example. There was MySpace, and there was Napster. Napster was a thing once, and I don't know, Slack. We had 1 million ways to communicate with each other before Slack came around and became a thing. So the fact that there are other applications that do exactly that is not a fatal blow to your idea.
Yeah, I mean, that's good input. You never know. But definitely but both of us can agree that you should do your research and have a reason to think that you're not wasting your time, because you can waste a lot of time.
Yeah, and think about the business side, because my first project, we invested crazy amount of time and we built it, but we didn't think through business side. How do we actually find users? We thought that you build it and users come, and guys, here's
probably
the bad
not.
news. No, they're not. No, they're not. I mean, chances are that if your application, even if it's ideal application for all the users in the world, chances are that if you don't think it through and you don't plan and you don't go and look for users, actively look for users, at least for initial users, chances are that no one will use your application.
It's a good point. And on that, no more questions. I'm ending the stream because we are over double the time that I wanted to take, and I'm hungry, and I'm tired, and I gotta take a pee. And but thanks Vasiliy for coming on here. I enjoyed getting to know you, and I would like to do this again sometime. You know, we have lots of questions.
I'm up to, because we have this idea of this thing that we didn't cover, which is like what's required for Android developer and what they should learn. And I'm really grateful to you for this opportunity. You know, people should know that you initiated this thing, and without you, it wouldn't happen. It was real fun, and I always like speaking to people. And it was my first live stream experience, for which I'm very grateful to you.
It was fun, right? It was no problem.
Fun. It was pure fun.
Yeah, pure fun. That's what it's meant to be.
Beers and Florian with a bag on his head.
I would love that. I would like, for my birthday, Florian. Or no, I'm getting married yeah, thanks, in 2 weeks. So when I get back, because it's going to be a destination wedding, when I get back, me and you and Florian should do a live stream. That can be my wedding gift, Florian. I think that's reasonable.
I think it sounds absolutely cool, and it will be very, very interesting.
Yeah, it'll be great. We'll answer all the questions. That'll be good. But,
yeah, we'll basically have like 3 hours.
No, maybe, sure. I'll make sure to pee before next time.
We'll not. But no, I mean, congratulations.
Okay.
Thanks very much for this opportunity.
All right. I'll see you next time.
Goodbye, all of you there who
Goodbye.
stayed around so long.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.